Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome to 6 Feet Unfiltered.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Courtney, and we are lifelong friends from Hibbing, Minnesota.
Yep.
Trigger warning for this episode. There's some hate crime involved, which sucks and was very hard for both of us. But I didn't know going into it, and I texted you. It was like, this one's heavy.
Yep.
So let's just get right into it. Today we're diving into 6 Feet Under Season 1, Episode 12, called A Private Life. The episode opens with a devastating act of violence that shakes everyone it touches, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of prejudice and the weight of loss. As the Fisher family navigates their own struggles, the ripple effects of this tragedy bring buried fears, long-avoided conversations, and painful reckonings to the surface. As David wrestles with his own identity in the wake of Marcus Foster Jr.'s murder, his journey takes a powerful turn, culminating into a long-overdue confrontation with Rico and a raw, emotional coming out moment with Ruth. Meanwhile, Brenda faces the terrifying reality of Billy's unraveling mental state, leading to an explosive and dangerous confrontation that finally forces her to make an impossible decision. Claire, navigating her own struggles, finds solace in Gabe, but their relationship raises questions about identity, trauma, and survival. And in one of the series' most cathartic moments, David reaches a breaking point at Marcus's funeral, leading to a shocking outburst that just might be the push that he needs to reclaim his truth. I got goosebumps. With gut-punching emotion, tense showdowns, and some of the most unforgettable moments of the season, this episode does not hold back. Let's get into it.
So a late-night ATM stop turns deadly in 6 Feet Under's most harrowing cold open yet. When Marcus Foster Jr. and his boyfriend are confronted by homophobic thugs, their night takes a terrifying turn. Separated and chased, Marcus is cornered and brutally murdered in a senseless act of hate. The scene, most likely written as a deliberate parallel to the 1998 murder of Matthew Shepard, serves as a gut-wrenching reminder of the real-life violence faced by LGBTQ plus individuals. It sets the tone for an episode that forces the Fisher family and us to confront mortality, injustice, and grief. And yes, I want to talk more about, we both have like extensive notes on this death scene.
I do have a little thing that just popped up in my head. This just like really hit me for a second, because in the LGBTQ community, it has been a lot of men that are the victims. Like how we are, like how women are sometimes the victims in the workplace.
I don't hate men. I hate misogyny.
Yes. Okay. We haven't really had the chance to shed light on the struggles of a gay man in the sense of how we feel as women in the workplace or at a club, or it just seems like you see a lesbian and that's somehow accepted because it's sexy or hot or whatever. Like lesbian porn is a lot. It's one of the number one viewed topics on Pornhub.
I bet gay porn is too, but it's just
it probably is. Yeah, we just don't talk about it because it's taboo. And I'm curious. I guess I'm not even really trying to have a conversation, but I just wanted to point out that a lot of gay men are really living in some of the scarier moments like we do, walking home from a club.
Like it's kind of like what we were talking about last time with Angela and the regulations at work, like to prevent sexual harassment. It's not always about the gender. It's more so comes down to like the power dynamics, which most often equates to
a male being the more powerful one.
Yeah. And a straight male.
Yes.
Huh. Which would be like kind of applicable in both of those situations. So yeah,
I don't know. Food for thought. It just popped in my head as we were talking. My first thing, like I was saying, I already know what the fuck is going to piss me off right now, and nobody's even died yet. I better be wrong. That is what I was thinking as soon as they were walking to the ATM.
So, okay, my note here is about Matthew Shepard. So this episode always gutted me, and I actually did a project.
I remember this.
Do you? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Mrs. Beesman?
Yes, I did a project on gay rights in Mrs. Beesman's class. We've mentioned her on our podcast before.
Grade?
It was 8th grade.
Okay.
And I don't ask me how I remember very specific years that things happened, but like I know for a fact. Same with you and the McChickens. I know that was 8th grade. 8th grade was just a really big year for me, I guess.
I think it was.
But okay, Mrs. Beeson's class. She was like our English language arts teacher, but I don't know what this project was. It was some kind of writing project. Oh, I think it was. It's funny because I'm just making the connection now after having been a teacher for 8 years. It was probably like an opinion writing piece, but it was more of like a project. So you kind of had to take a stance on something and defend it essentially and give a presentation on it. And so mine was on gay rights. And so I had this like poster board of all of these people who have been murdered or subject to hate crimes. And Matthew Shepard was one. So that was when I first learned about Matthew Shepard. And
did they do a movie on him?
Oh, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff because it was a huge thing.
Was he the one that got hanged?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so. They like left. I think he was like tied to a fence post or something, if I'm remembering correctly. Horrific, absolutely horrific. But I remember when I was giving that presentation, I'm not going to say anyone's names, but there was a person, and he wasn't the only one, but sitting in the back of the class, and I remember sitting down, and this person was sitting behind me, and when I sat down after giving my spiel on gay rights or whatever, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I'm like proud of myself for doing that in 8th grade in Hibbing, Minnesota. But at the time, I had I thought everybody was like
us.
Like my yeah. So I thought everyone.
FYI, Chloe is not gay.
No. But I think my source of doing that was Jeffrey, my sister. You met Jeffrey at like my grad party and stuff. And I considered him my legitimate real brother, even though not biologically. But Jeffrey is my older sister's best friend since kindergarten. He's gay. And he was like my brother my whole life. But because he's always been a part of my life. But anyway, so I'm little 8th grade Chloe is up in front of Mrs. Beesman's English class giving a presentation defending gay rights and going through in explicit detail, not in like a gruesome
graphic
way, but in a just like, and this is what happened to this person and blah, blah, blah. So like, fuck anybody who would do that, basically. And I sat down and I was just like, okay, cool, did my project. But then I remember hearing the boys in the back of the class, specifically this one person, say very clearly, if I found out my brother was gay, I would fucking kill myself or something along those lines. And I remember turning around and looking at this person. And this person, mind you, was not they're very quiet. I don't think I'd ever literally even heard them speak before this, but they were like popular. And I remember turning around and looking at them and just staring at them in awe. And I just remember looking and I was just dumbfounded. Literally, I couldn't believe it. But all of that to say, that is how I had that seed in my brain about Matthew Shepard, because he was murdered in 1998, which Courtney and I would have been in kindergarten or preschool at that time. So it wasn't a mainstream media thing that we would have remembered hearing about, but that's how I knew about it. And I swear to God, when I was watching this episode, I was having like a Mandela effect situation. Do you know what that is?
When you think you've heard something before, but you never have.
Yes.
But it hasn't
or
really
seen
happened.
Something.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Which is a total mind fuck.
It is. Look it up, Mandela effect. There's a bunch of examples of it online and stuff, but I think I'm having that right now because I swear to God, when I watched this episode before, I remember seeing a screen that said like dedicated to Matthew Shepard or in loving memory of Matthew Shepard or something.
But you didn't this time around?
No, and I wasn't looking that closely. I might have missed it, but I think it's more likely that I just made that up in my head. But I always, when this episode came on, I knew right away. I was like, oh, this is the Matthew Shepard. And I knew right away when I saw it too, that that's what you were talking about in your notes when you texted me, or not in your notes, but when you texted me and said this one's triggering. I'm like, oh, no wonder she said it's triggering, because this one has always been hit really hard for me because it's just one of those episodes.
So you're going to be pissed off today like I was last week.
I mean, yeah, I remembered it for sure. But I just, for some background, if anyone's listening to this and maybe doesn't know all the background on Matthew Shepard, he was a gay college student whose brutal murder in Laramie, Wyoming became a pivotal moment in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights. Attacked and left tied to a fence in a remote area, he succumbed to his injuries days later.
Oh my God.
His death sparked national outrage and led to the passage of the Matthew Shepard and James Beard Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act in 2009. His legacy continues through the Matthew Shepard Foundation, which advocates for inclusivity, awareness, and protections against hate crimes. Okay, before we get into this, though, I just have to take a moment to give a shout out to Mrs. Beesman, because I was just thinking she could have told me that that was like not an okay topic to present on or something. Like she could.
What year was this in?
2007, 2006, probably. And I remember though, and I remember this with her on several different occasions, because we had her, or at least I know I
Twice.
did. Several times. Like we had her in junior high, then we would have her again later in like 9th, 11th grade-ish, whatever. But I know that several times throughout my time being in her class, I remember her giving me this like look of concern. And she was a very, I don't even know how to describe her. She was like
She kind of was like Ruth.
Yes, she was like Ruth. She was like a little old lady type, but she wasn't super old. She was like Ruth, kind of grandma-ish.
Yep.
But,
and if you pissed her off, she would pull a Ruth.
Oh, and she had her shit together in that class, and I loved.
But she was
her
never
class.
rude.
No, I loved her. I loved her, but I remember being confused as to why I liked her so much, because she was kind of like an old lady type. But I really respected her and loved her class. But I do remember her looking at me. This was one of those moments where I remember sitting down after giving that presentation on everything, and it makes sense looking back, especially given how, I mean, I was being very naive because I wasn't realizing that actually most of the people in that classroom probably grew up in homes who were anti-LGBTQ plus rights. Like it was proven to me after when I sat down, and then the boys in the back of the class started talking about how they'd kill themselves if their brother was gay or something. So, but I remember her looking at me like she was worried about me, but I feel like it was she was probably thinking, because she as an adult in the classroom knew in her head, you're speaking for what you believe in, which I approve of, but at the same time
could be dangerous.
Yeah, or there's people in this room that are not going to agree with you, but I support you. Obviously she supported me because she let me do that and didn't, I don't know. I could be totally wrong. She could be a huge bigot and we have no idea, and she just hated the fact that I was talking about that. But I'm going to choose to believe that she was secretly cheering me on in like a woman power way.
I would think that that's the case. I mean, she gives me the vibe of
especially
freedom of speech.
Yes. And I needed to give her a shout out. So anyway, back to the episode. So during the death scene, these men shouted out to
Read
him,
a fucking Bible, you fucking pervert. And then kicks his head in. And I was thinking, what? Like, my brain started surging because yes. Are you kidding me? If you even say the words, read a fucking Bible, you don't even have to finish the last part of the sentence. The first part of the sentence alone basically tells me that you're
delusional.
Yes. And this theme is going to be brought up several times.
Yeah. So after the first scene, separate from the death scene, we see Rico and Vanessa at the Fishers together, introducing Ruth, Nate, and David to baby Augusto.
And I noticed that it was interesting that David was like almost afraid of the baby. And I was wondering, is it because he's gay and has this perception in his mind that he'll never like be a dad? Or maybe he plain old doesn't want to be a dad, doesn't like kids. But it was interesting that they panned his face, and he plays that disgusted look really well. Like even later when he's eating with Ruth.
Yes.
Remind me to bring that face up.
Yeah. It's like he's so good.
Yeah.
But
it's a very Dexter face.
Yes. Michael C. Hall. I know we've praised him so much, but like chef's kiss to every muscle in that man's face. But it's interesting that you say that about maybe he just plain old doesn't want to be a dad, because later on in the episode, you remember how he brings up how he wants to be the guy at church with the kid on his knee. So we know that he does.
It was interesting that I had written that and then it came up later.
Yes. But yeah, I would think probably to what you're saying, my guess would be that he was avoiding it because he knew what was about to happen was probably going to happen. And that before we get into that, I was curious because during that little interaction where they were introducing the baby, Ruth made a comment about how babies look like their dads to establish paternal instincts in the men or something like that.
I do think that that's true.
Okay, so I looked that up about whether babies really look like their dad at birth to establish paternity. And this is what I found. So there's a common belief that newborns tend to resemble their fathers more than their mothers as an evolutionary strategy to ensure paternal certainty and investment. However, scientific studies on this topic have yielded mixed results. So some early studies suggested that babies do look more like their fathers at birth, possibly as a subconscious way to reassure fathers of their biological connection. However, more recent research has found that newborns tend to resemble both parents equally, or sometimes even their mothers more. So one study published in Evolution and Human Behavior found that independent observers couldn't reliably determine which parent a newborn looked like. So additionally, babies' features change quickly in their first year, and resemblance can shift over time. The idea that babies look more like their dads at birth as a biological strategy is more of a myth than a scientifically proven fact. But
I would also agree with that. I do think all of my kids looked like Rob when they came out, but I do also agree it shifts over months and years, and it's weird. And even just things that they do and say.
Right. Mannerisms and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So Rico asked David and Nate, kind of like jokingly, but not really. He just says,
my God.
When are you guys going to grow up and make Ruth a grandma or something along those lines? And the way that she just stops and looks and waits for them to answer, like, it was so funny. But
awkward.
She's holding the baby, just oogling over the baby like Ruth wants to be a grandma. We know this. So it was awkward, though, because neither Nate or David are in a position to be like, oh, yeah, real soon.
Yep.
So then we see Claire and Gabe arrive at school together for Gabe's first day back after his OD.
And I loved this moment because Claire says they're kind of talking about how Gabe's worried about going back to school. And Claire's like, who gives a fuck what these people think? Everybody is too obsessed with what people think about them to think about anyone else. And I had to note how wildly mature for a young woman, let alone a high school woman, to understand that. It has taken me years of therapy, and I think I'm also ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree for yourself? Like, there's a saying. It's called the 20-40-60 rule. When you're in your 20s, you worry so much about what people think about you. When you're in your 40s, you don't give a fuck anymore about what people think about you. And then when you're in your 60s, you realize nobody gave a fuck about you.
Yeah.
And it's so, I remember reading that in one of my therapy deep dives a few years ago. And I was like, that's the type of mentality I want to embody, is that 60-year-old woman. Claire is so close to.
And she's not even 20.
No, it was mind blowing for me to hear that. Her say that.
I was really glad that you made a note of that, because I liked that too, but I didn't include that in my notes. But I really liked that perception that she had. That was, I love her so much. I wouldn't be mad if we just sat and read like every line she ever says. Yeah, I just love her.
They're good.
And she doesn't really get enough acknowledgement, I feel like, as a character.
I agreed. This episode, though, I did make a lot of acknowledgements about her, because there was a couple other things that she said and did that I was like, damn, girl.
She's so good. So then we see Brenda confront Billy about taking the photos of her and Nate while they slept in the hotel room.
And Billy goes, what, you think I took that pic? And I'm like, I don't know. He's the king of gaslighting. So I was just very like, did he? I don't know. Am I a victim?
Oh, really?
Yes. Like, stop.
Okay.
Get out of my life.
Very
I can't.
Interesting.
Yes.
That is, because that's another example of how I've watched this more recently than Courtney has. So I remember in that moment, I knew that he did. But as somebody who's watching it who doesn't remember for sure, it's
I'm like the victim part with her.
See. Yeah.
And I bet you Brenda had a stark, quick. I know.
Yes.
I know that she full out says, fuck you, Billy. I know, blah, blah,
right.
blah.
But she wants to believe. I will
bet you in the back of her head, she probably had a quick slap in the face. Like it wasn't him. I don't know. That's, gaslighting is so real, and it's such a manipulative behavior that if you are invested in that person, you could easily believe what they're saying to warp your reality.
Yeah. And clearly he's effective.
And then Brenda is telling Billy that he needs to stay on his medications, otherwise he gets scary. And Billy says, you're not scared of me, are you? Another gaslighting thing. Like, he's telling her basically how to feel. I would never hurt you. You're like the most important person in my life. And I thought this was interesting because I actually believe him here, but we have to remember that Billy has these like multi-personalities. And so what he's saying right then and there to Brenda, being you're the most important person in my life. I would never hurt you. That was that Billy, and it might be true for him, but we know what the other Billies would actually do and are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was worth mentioning the fact that I do think that at least one of parts of his brain is capable of.
There's like elements of truth woven into his web of lies that make it all the more difficult for the person on the receiving end of the abuse, which is Brenda,
to sift through.
Right.
God, it has to be so exhausting.
Yes.
I was exhausted.
This was a major crazy Billy episode. And when Billy said, "You're the most important person in my life," then Brenda said back, "Yeah, well, do you ever stop to think that maybe that's fucked up?" So
what did you think about that?
I was proud of her, and it felt, the way that they were presenting it to us, it felt as though that might have been like the first time that she had ever suggested that reality to him.
Okay, so what is fucked up about him thinking that she's the most important person in her life? I didn't understand that line very well. I knew that there was meaning behind it, and it came out of Brenda's mouth, so it has to have some sort of...
I mean, obviously in any normal brother-sister relationship, if a brother said, or I shouldn't say normal, maybe healthy is a better word. Let's say Billy wasn't psychotic and they had a healthy relationship, and he said to her, "You're the most important person in my life," that would be an entirely different statement than this statement. It's just all about the context in my mind. He's obviously, in this situation, when he says, "You're the most important person in my," he's actually saying, "I control you and you have to continue letting me to control you." You know what I mean? But that those exact same words could also be used in a different dynamic and mean something completely different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I knew that this line would come up and I was curious. So, okay, now we're to Billy and Brenda talking about the keys. Okay, Billy gives her the key back and says, "Fine, I have a separate at home." And Brenda goes, "Well, I can always change the locks," which is what I was thinking anyways. Why the fuck would you even ask for the key back? Just change the locks. So Billy's trying to give the keys back to Brenda, and she's basically saying, "I can change the locks." And he goes, "Do you know how fucking easy it'd be to just break in here?" And the look on his face, I was feeling like I remember that level of desperation when I was younger before. Like I had any sort of diagnosis on my mental health or anxiety or any sort of control over my feelings and my emotions. And
before therapy.
Yes. I probably even during therapy too. That just not very good therapy.
Beginning.
And I had felt that frustration to say something out loud. And honestly, I've been to a point where I've been so angry that I may have had thoughts like that, like I was going to speak those things out loud. And then I just came to my senses and decided it wasn't a good idea. But I can relate to his anger and frustration and that desperation in this specific scene right here. And not in an, "Oh, poor Billy" way, but in a, you need to recognize what's going on right now and get some help. I certainly can't recall ever being this low, but I can imagine how debilitating and confusing it is for Billy right now. Like he just isn't understanding this. In his mind, he's feeling like things are being taken away from him.
Yeah.
It's
unrightfully
so yes. So it's hard to get mad at him because I think that he truly believes that.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor, by the way.
He is so good. I do love Jeremy Sisto, and he still looks great. But yeah, he's sick. Billy is sick, and he doesn't realize it. So Brenda ends up demanding her key back, and Billy flips out, but he does give it back. And then, like you said, he said, "You know how easy it would be to break in." And I said, "What the fuck, Billy? You're not helping your cause here." Because it's like, why would you? You're your own worst enemy, literally.
He was saying those words out of his last hopes of keeping some sort of control over the situation.
Yeah, which just completely did the opposite. And Brenda's line here, "You have to take care of yourself now, Billy. I can't do it anymore." So essentially that their whole conversation can be summed up by her saying, "You need to take care of yourself now," and him trying desperately to say whatever he can say to make that not be her decision. But ultimately that she does stick to it and kicks him out. So then David and Nate are doing the intake for Mark, and it's interesting here how the mom actually insists on seeing him, whereas that is in contrast to most of the other mothers that we've seen so far, because most of the mothers we've seen who have lost a child and are doing the intakes are like, "Oh no, I can't see him in a box," or "I can't bear to, you know, whatever it is. But this mom was like, no. Well, because David suggested a closed casket, actually, because this man had been beaten so badly in the face.
His head was caved in.
Yes. And the mom was like, no. And she insisted on seeing him and gave them pictures of what so you can see what he looked like. So that was really interesting. I thought it would be interesting to kind of unpack that, because it's it was very, I also wrote down, fuck the dad, because he's like, we all know why this happened. If he wasn't, then he would be alive today. He couldn't even say, but that's another thing that we'll talk about. But I think that the mom here is kind of like taking a stance in the way by insisting on seeing him, insisting on having him on display, because she's probably thinking like she knows that she's not going to be the only one who is affected by this. Like, this is bigger than just her losing her son. This is a whole community of people that he represents, essentially. I don't know. There's a lot that could be teased out of her reasoning for wanting and insisting on having an open casket, I think.
Right. Almost in the sense of, we're not going to let them win.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
I hope that is what was going on.
I do too. And I think that it's safe for us to believe that, because I mean, we could even go as far as to speculate that they had been intentionally having all of the mothers prior to this not being able to bear seeing their child in a casket.
And even so, like, this is a very horrific visual too.
Right.
Like, the others didn't want to see their sons or their children who weren't badly beaten even. And this one, yeah. Huh, that's interesting.
Right. And then I really loved how Nate looked toward David, really concerned looking on his face, while the dad was saying like, oh, if he wasn't gay, then this wouldn't have happened. This dad is not helping David's journey here. Then the wife says to him, well, what do you expect, Marcus? You can't even say it, because he said, we all know why it happened. If he wasn't, then he'd be alive today. So I just wrote poor David, because I just felt for him there. That must have felt like a stab in the heart.
This is interesting to me right now, because I don't even remember Nate being there.
He didn't.
So I don't
say
even
much.
remember. Right. Because my notes are obviously, in the beginning, I definitely pointed out that the dad couldn't say the word gay. And then oh my God, the mom just said the same thing. I was like, oh, that's funny. And noting that David was doing the intake, how uncomfortable, I didn't even realize that Nate wasn't even, or that Nate was there.
I don't even think he really said anything. He just was sitting
Nate
there.
Does in all of the other ones. Notice he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
He kind of let this be David's.
Yeah. And he gave David like a look, like I interpreted as Nate being concerned for David. Like, are you good right now? Because fuck, you're gay. You know?
Do you want me to step in?
Right. Huh. Like, are you good?
I have to go back and watch that scene.
Yeah, it was very easy to miss, because I don't think any words actually came out of his mouth about it. But then we see David bringing Marcus's body downstairs, and he unzips the body bag, and that's the first time that we see how horrific his face is beaten. And Rico goes, he's so brash. He's like, okay, Cinderella, we're going to have to work overtime to get you ready for the big ball, because men don't make passes at girls with big gashes. And he's like holding his baby, rocking it as he's saying this.
I did not understand that.
He's just so
affected.
Yeah, like he does not have that, obviously. Well, it's interesting though, because last episode he did have that when it was a little baby, but now it's a gay man and he doesn't. And that is as clear a picture I think we could possibly paint for Rico's character.
Yes. Yep. We know where his priorities and standards are.
Morals and values.
Yeah. And it looks like we both are obsessed.
Yes.
That David wanted to do Marcus's body.
Yeah. Rico was like, oh, are you sure? Because that's a really hard job. But yeah, we both made a note of how we loved that David insisted on taking that job on.
And he also had a little out for it too, you know, because he's like, you have a new baby, you just go.
Yeah. He's like, why don't you go home? And Rico was like eager to accept that. Then Brenda is at dinner with Nate, filling him in about hers and Billy's interaction earlier. And Nate insists that she needs to do more than cut him off and take her key, which starts an argument between them. Brenda says to Nate, do you even get the concept of loving someone that much? And Nate just looks at her straight face and is like, yes, I get that concept. So I thought that was just like an oof moment. Nate tells her he thinks her parents are right on this and that Billy needs to be somewhere. But I felt when he was saying, yes, I get that concept, it was almost a slap in the face to Brenda, because he's saying, yeah, that's how I feel about you, you know?
Which is hard to compare because he's in love with somebody who is quote unquote mentally stable. Brenda is loving Billy, who's not. So like I think that's where her mind was at.
Right.
Although I also noted I'm 100% on Nate's side here. Billy is dangerous and this is not going to end well. And I put that Brenda's sort of like a victim here herself, and I don't think she's thinking straight. So she right now is in,
I mean, she's essentially
survival mode,
like actively a victim of abuse.
Yes.
But at the hands of Billy.
And for somebody as intelligent as her, it just goes to show that you can be a victim of abuse and be a completely intelligent woman and not know it.
Very good point.
Relying on your support, your friends and your family, or people that you love and trust, to listen to some of their insight if it's possible that you might be in a similar situation. It's a good idea.
For sure. So Brenda tells Nate she's getting upset with him, and she's like, this is so not how I need you to be right now. And then she essentially breaks up with him and tells him he might as well throw away his key because she changed the lock, which we can infer that won't last long. But
And I'm also just a little bit confused with how Brenda's responding to Nate. Just like you said, that this is not what I need from you right now. And then asking to take some time off. I don't understand what she really wants from Nate. Someone to like enable Billy along with her. It's just weird, and I'm just not understanding it. I feel like she definitely could be validated. Nate could have validated the way that she was feeling, and I'm trying to think of what he could have done better and how hard this has to be for her. But I think he's right. I think this isn't just a let's fire Billy from his job type of thing. We're actually literally dealing with somebody who is very crazy and could be potentially life-threatening, of a danger to both of them, one or both of them. It's just, Brenda.
Yeah. It just goes to show how abuse operates, like how that dynamic is. Because exactly like you just said, she's such an intelligent person, but she is even being deduced to being essentially delusional because she can't differentiate
She
between...
feels like she's being yes. Oh, that's interesting. I feel like
she has almost... And
Billy
that's got to
has
be
a full
scary
grasp
for
on
her. Because she's definitely intelligent enough to realize that if she steps back, but it's like that against her love for Billy. And that's got to be the hardest thing in the world. So then Ruth and David are sitting down to dinner, and Claire is at a movie.
And Ruth is being passive aggressive and says, what do I know? Nobody ever tells me what's really going on. And I'm just like, oh, come on, get over the fuck yourself.
Insinuating that Claire's not really at a movie, which she's probably not.
And insinuating that things are happening behind her back, which I have a lot to say about later. It will come up.
Yeah. So then Ruth asks David about Marcus, I'm assuming to try to lead them back into the conversation about David being gay. And he doesn't really have anything to say about it. So Ruth is like, do you like the hen? David says, very much. What did you stuff it with? And Ruth says, chestnuts, breadcrumbs, celery. Do you want to know all of the ingredients? And David is like, no, thanks.
This is the moment I was talking about his face, his facial expressions.
Yes.
It was just like so
good.
And who says hen? Is hen a chicken?
It's like, okay, have you ever had like a Cornish hen?
No, I don't want to talk about it, actually. I'm getting like upset stomachs.
It's like a mini turkey or like a mini rotisserie chicken. But they're like, yeah, I don't like it either. Let's not. Yeah, that's
Is
weird.
it a chicken or not?
I don't know. Is a hen a chicken?
I thought so. But when you call it a hen, it sounds so much more loving.
Okay.
And
yeah, let's not.
Like
I don't like it either. I don't like it. Okay.
Are you feeling it yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Ruth asks David, are you going out tonight? And he says, no, not tonight. Are you? And
This is so
she
weird.
says, me? No. But, sometimes I do see Hiram on occasion, and I know you don't like that, but I also know you love me no matter who I see in my private life. And David says, well, that's good, Mom. And I wrote, oh, she's trying so hard. Also getting pissed, though. Love her. But apparently it pissed you off.
It was just too much.
It was just
It was
so
fishing.
cringy. It was so cringy,
Yeah.
but she's trying so hard. And then Claire is back in Gary's office at school. Haven't seen him in a while. And he asks her why she dropped jazz vocals sophomore year.
Oh, I wrote this one down. And she goes, because the music teacher was a crackhead. And he goes, no, I'm serious, Claire. And she goes, so am I. He really was a crackhead. He got busted and fired and the jazz vocals was discontinued. Do your homework. And I LOL. That was
So
like
did I.
not what I was expecting.
Yes, and I love that's another Claire moment because it's just like literally Gary. And I think he's falling in love with her. Can't you see it in his eyes? I think he is.
But
Gross. I know.
no, I was.
Yes, it is. He shouldn't be falling in love with
I know
her.
that's one of my fantasies, though.
We've been over this.
I don't know. I feel like it could be interpreted that way, or he's falling in like protective of her. I don't know. Something happens and I don't know. Alrighty.
Okay. So I love that too. And I wrote, oh, if I'm sensing some sexual tension here, this is the moment, the first time that I ever do sense it. Claire, what?
I had a really big thought.
What?
I wonder if they're both falling in love now that you say that, because she doesn't tell him about.
Okay.
Continue, because it will
Okay.
come up.
So Claire then tells Gary why she dropped out of other extracurriculars as he names them off, and she has a reason for everything, but they all connect back to her not fitting into the typical mold that everyone else wants her to be. She mentions things like censorship, the mentality of teenagers, how
Puking after lunch.
yeah, she cares about more than just puking after lunch or whatever. So then we see another Claire/Brenda parallel here, which I thought was really interesting when she starts talking about how he asks, what do you like to do for fun? And she's like, oh, I like to make up different cyber identities online. So remember last episode, Brenda was making up different identities when they were in Vegas.
And that's
at
not the first
funeral
time Brenda's
director's
done it either.
license. No, and I think that they're clearly putting these episodes back to back for us to draw that connection, which is so interesting because I never picked up on that before.
Me neither.
But why would they do that? Like one episode Brenda's doing it, the next episode Claire's doing the exact same thing or talking about doing the same thing.
Does. Yeah.
So it's interesting that prior to that, this realization, we have already put the pieces together that there's so many parallels between Claire and Brenda.
Yep.
And now they're like kind of throwing it in our face. And neither of us noticed it before this time around watching. So that to me is just fascinating in terms of looking at how the writing in the show is so amazing and so deep. Oh, love it. So she also made a comment about Parker McKenna. She's like, well, sometimes I like to hang out with Parker McKenna, even though she's pretty much a split personality freak.
Love that.
So yeah, that was funny because we talked about that before about what Claire's perception of Parker is. So she just comes out and says it here. Then Gary asks her if she's dating anyone, and then the scene cut.
Okay. Then we have Keith getting asked to do Marcus's funeral security. And first of all, I love that Keith is openly gay at work and as a black man cop. And I know that he felt like this was chosen for him because he's gay, but I really do like this idea. So I'm open to unpacking this further.
And I was so happy to read that because I had a whole note about this scene too. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think Keith was really feeling there in that moment when his boss or captain or sergeant or whatever the fuck you call it, probably not sergeant.
I don't know.
Whatever the cop boss
The head
is.
guy?
Yeah, the head guy. He's like, you're going to be security at this funeral. So what was he feeling there? My thoughts are in that moment, like when he was asked, essentially he's like, okay, why'd you ask me? It's not just because I'm gay, is it? And the guy's like, come on, Keith, it's because you're a good cop. Like, what do you want me to say? But Keith in that moment when the guy walks away, he's not annoyed and pissed off like he usually is. He's like chuckling to himself. So he honestly didn't have an aggressive demeanor. I think that he was kind of relishing in the fact that he's so comfortable with his sexuality that he actually enjoys bringing it up and watching people squirm
Get uncomfortable
when he confronts them with it. His boss also did seem to respect him. And I wonder if they're showing us more from Keith's perspective to show us why he gets so frustrated, because he's like, in his head, his thought is probably, if only David could grow some balls, he could be like this too and we could be happy together. But then we also have the contrast of Marcus being our death scene character this episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I agreed with a lot of what you said, I think it is a projection of him trying. He said that to like remind whomever's watching and listening that it's okay to be gay and I'm being comfortable with it, you know?
Do you think he was actually offended?
No, I don't think he was. I thought that he would be honored, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
I think he really was.
Yeah.
And I think that he was just like kind of giving his boss shit because he's that cool with himself.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely seemed, it was obvious to me that it would be Keith.
Yeah.
To do the security for a couple of reasons. I do think he's a fucking good cop, and I would have thought maybe that he would want to, and maybe
he probably does want to.
Yeah.
I think it's just showing how he's kind of saying, I can play this man game too.
Yeah, maybe that's more of what it was. And he doesn't put up with shit.
Yeah, but it wasn't like they were giving him shit either.
No.
Like he's just kind of asserting his, not dominance, but just like his like, I'm no less than you. And
it probably does come from a place of, how many times do you have a scenario with a friend or somebody close that you love that you just wish that they could do better of or be better at? A lot, right? And something that you're actually really good at, then how often do you walk through the next day doing that thing really good, even though that they're not watching? Did I explain that well enough?
I don't know. I think I'm following you.
Okay, so how often, let me give an example. So let's say we're talking to somebody about being confident in their body. That's a good one. One of the things that I help other women do is with body confidence. And let's say I'm working with somebody and I'm getting all of their cues that they're not confident. And I'm like, if you could just be happy with your skin. And then for the rest of that day, I'm like, it's in the forefront of my mind that I'm shouting more confident body confidence out and
walking the walk.
Yes. What if that's Keith? Yes. That's him.
He's walking the walk for David.
Yes. Can you put that in layman's terms? Or did I really layman's it up?
I think you layman's it.
Okay. So layman's so that we can't remember what I said.
In his head, he's essentially modeling the behavior he would like to see from David.
Yep. Even though David's not watching.
Yeah.
Or seeing.
It's like an integrity thing.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
I love Keith.
Yeah, I don't know. That is kind of what I wanted to unpack, I think, on it. Okay.
So then David is in the prep room working on Marcus's body, talking to his ghost. And Marcus is essentially the devil on David's shoulder. I wasn't really expecting this, and I didn't remember the specific aspect of this episode. I was kind of expecting this to be a more warm relationship, but Marcus's ghost is a huge bitch to David. So he says to him, no matter how nice you fix me up, I'm still going to hell. You know it, because you're going there too. So yeah, devil on his shoulder, just telling him all the things that the devil on his shoulder would tell him.
Yep. And one of the things that he said that shook me was, I should have never given in into his temptations of being gay. And as somebody who's queer, I remember feeling that same thing. Like I remember thinking I remember specifically thinking, if somebody in the future ever invents something that they can read minds, I'm fucked. Because I felt like I had this giant secret that I couldn't tell anybody, and I had to stop. I remember sometimes, this is really TMI, but I would watch lesbian porn. And when I was super, super young, it would like come up on the screen on our TVs late at night. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'd have to wait up till like super late.
Like Girls Gone Wild era.
It was that. It was. I think it was Girls Gone Wild. And
Just waking up out of a dead sleep when you're like 8 years old and there's just tits.
I set my alarm. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I did that.
I would
probably
wake
was
up to that too, but I would just be like, what the
go
fuck?
back to bed. And I would masturbate. And then when I was done, I would say, I'll never do that again. Oh my God, I should. Like, I felt so bad. And I needed to like confess my sins. And then I specifically then wrote, I think this is why I hate religion so much, is because it was such a pivotal moment for me being young and having these thoughts and like relating them back to religion, because it makes you fear for who you are. Like you fear what you're feeling and doing. And I truly wasn't hurting anybody except myself. And it was what I was hurting was my identity and who I was, and trying to hide. Oh, I have goosebumps. I'm trying to like hide all of these things. Ugh, it's just.
And in this moment to think of how, so Marcus is saying, I should have never given in. And obviously we know that Marcus's ghost isn't real. All these ghosts are like,
yes,
their
it's
minds.
not his actual
so
say.
To think about the fact that that's what David is thinking in his head.
Yep.
He's like, oh, I should have never given in. Like, that's heart-wrenching to think about, that he, even at this point, is still so far away that he feels that way.
I wonder if it's because it does seem kind of out of the blue for me to hear this ghost of David coming through so harsh and hard at him. And because I thought we were making really good progress with him.
Well, I think it's because of the nature of his death and the fact that he was a gay man.
It brought up a lot of trauma, I think, in the back of his mind, and things that he's never actually really unpacked himself.
Forced him to confront things that he had been pushing away or not wanting to confront, which for good reason, because he's trying to, like you said, climb this mountain. And if you're sitting there dwelling on the fact that there's a ton of homophobes and hillbilly fucks out there that think it's their right to hate you
and kill you
exactly, then you're not going to get anywhere. But now it's just being thrown in his face. So
because I bet you what was happening is I'm sort of relating it to my experience. When he first realized he was gay, he realized he's never telling anybody. This is a secret. He's literally never he's taking it to the grave with him. Then he meets Keith and he's like, okay, I probably could still keep this a secret and like whatever. And then they break up and he's like, okay, now I have to do my work. So I'm working, I'm climbing this mountain, I'm getting so much better. And then this happens and he's like, nope, fuck that. I can't. Like my life is literally on the line now.
Yeah. He's terrified. Literally terrified, which we see even more develop further throughout this episode, but it's so fucking sad. So then we see Nate sitting alone at the kitchen table, leaving a voicemail on Brenda's answering machine, apologizing and telling her to pick up and call him back.
And to not say fuck you.
Yeah. Yes, because he heard, yes, that's what she usually does. So then as soon as he hangs up, the phone rings and he answers, assuming it's Brenda calling him back, but it's actually somebody calling about a body that needs to be picked up.
At a residence, by the way.
Yep. Then back at the flower shop, Ruth asks Robbie, her gay coworker, to talk after he accidentally bumps her in the face with a tree he's carrying. And she basically asks
how he came out.
Yeah, how he came out. And he's like, well, what makes you think I'm gay? And she freaks out. She's like, I'm sorry, you're not gay. And he's like, of course I'm gay.
Agreed. This combo is everything I needed in this episode. I literally love Robbie right now.
He's great. He's a great character. He's annoying as fuck. But
that's why I said right now.
Yeah.
I like him right now.
Yeah. Love, hate. So
I think Robbie has a lot of his own issues.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited for us to get to know him more because I remember that we do. But Robbie acts offended that she asks, so she apologizes profusely and says, the reason that I'm asking is because my son. And Robbie cuts her off and says, oh, dear Lord, save it for Geraldo. And I didn't know who Geraldo was. Geraldo or Geraldo? I can't remember how it's pronounced. So I looked him up, and apparently Geraldo Rivera is a journalist and TV personality known for his 1972 expose on the Willowbrook State School, which exposed horrific abuse of disabled children and led to major reforms.
Oh, Jesus.
So as host of Geraldo, from 1987 to 1998, he had his own talk show. He tackled controversial topics, including LGBTQ plus issues, giving early mainstream visibility to openly gay guests and discussions on AIDS. Later, as a Fox News contributor, he took conservative stances on immigration and law enforcement, but supported same-sex marriage and criminal justice reform. Rivera's career blends investigative impact with tabloid spectacle, shaping public discourse through both journalism and provocative media commentary. So he was a controversial talk show person that apparently was mostly conservative, but had a left wing for gay rights issues, which was
Probably abnormal.
Yeah, very abnormal. And kind of, you learn something new every day. I had no idea who Geraldo was, whatever. So then Robbie tells Ruth it's none of her business. She apologizes again for offending him, and Robbie kind of stammers. After she apologizes, he is just looking at her. You can tell in his eyes he's thinking, oh, well, I actually kind of want to talk about it.
I didn't think he was offended.
No,
I think he just wanted, he's offended that
a drama queen.
He's offended that Ruth is doing his job right now. And so he's going to make everything else be offensive for him.
Absolutely. But then when she gives up and she's like, okay, forget it. I'm
stubborn. And he's too stubborn
to stubborn.
Talk about it more, because you know that you just said he wants to.
Yes, he wants to so bad, but he stammers. He's like, that's a shitty place for the lily, and walks away.
Who does he remind me of? It'll come to me.
So funny. I love them. So Nate is pushing a gurney through an old abandoned building, calling out for the person to contact who called him about picking up the body. I remember this scene now as I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. I wonder if Billy was at Brenda's listening to Nate leave the message when he called, because he called right after he hung up.
Oh my God.
I know.
Yes.
Right? Crazy.
Okay. Back it up. As soon as Nate walked into that motherfucking building, it was told a residence, not a building. I would have walked my ass right out of there. There was no way. I don't remember what was happening until we get into the elevator, and then it started all coming back to me. But I knew that this was not a happening thing.
Yeah. It was like the only explanation I can give for that, and it's just kind of popping in my head as you were describing that, is that when they said it was a residence, I'm pretty sure this building was like an old abandoned like loft/apartment building type deal. So I wonder, abandoned. That's obviously not something that we're used to, but if you think of like, okay, have you ever seen the movie The Ring?
Yes.
Okay, so side note, I was a weird child. This is another parallel to me and Claire. I feel like she could relate to this, but the movie The Ring, when it came out, I feel like that was like a 2003 movie. It was my favorite movie. I had it on VHS, and I brought it everywhere that I went. Like, to every friend's house I went to. Like, when I would go to my dad's, I would bring it with me and watch it there, and my stepmom was really concerned. Loved it. I love this movie.
Fucking hated that movie.
I've seen The Ring. I still watch it to this day as like a comfort film.
I should watch it again.
It's so good, but I love that movie. Anyway, I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but you remember the character Noah?
I'd have only seen it like twice.
Okay, so but basically we're talking about the building, and there's buildings that exist that I've never been in, and I don't think you've ever been in, but they exist in like big cities that are like kind of half abandoned. Some people still live in them, and they have those weird elevators that are like don't have a door.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's like the vibe. So I wonder if Nate was like walking into this thinking like, wonder if this is just one of them old fucked up apartment buildings where there's like 2 residents left and it's just basically dilapidated. But you know what I'm saying? Just as like a logical attempt at reasoning for why in the actual fuck he decided to continue on this journey. So as he is riding this old rickety elevator up to the top floor, he starts seeing pictures taped to the walls as he's passing by, and they're the pictures that Billy took of Claire. First just of her, then of him kissing and groping her, and they're all labeled with titles like Your Sister and Me, 2001, etc.
And I'm thinking, okay, there's Claire's photo that finally resurfaces.
It finally popped up. So Nate's obviously starting to freak out, and then because he had no idea.
Why is he not gone yet?
Literally. Well, then once he saw the first picture of Claire, then he was probably what probably kept him hanging on was the Claire
is
aspect.
the body.
Well, he hadn't seen the body yet.
I know, but he probably thought.
Oh
Claire's
yeah. I didn't
Claire's
think
body.
about that he could be thinking potentially. I think his initial
But true,
reaction.
you're right. She's involved.
Right. Like as soon as he saw that she was involved, then he probably was like, I need to get to the bottom of this because he didn't even know that Billy and her had ever even spent time together. Right?
I think he knew that they were.
Maybe he did, but either way, these are concerning images.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he gets to the top floor, it's lined with candles and it's dark. And the next photo is of Nate and Brenda fucking, and it was taken through the window of Brenda's house. And it's titled My Sister and You. And I wrote the same thing. Why he didn't run out of there as soon as he saw the first picture is beyond me. But Nate follows Billy's installation into a room that is set up with a mattress with what looks like a body lying beneath the sheets with the arms splayed out and what looks like bloodstains where the wrists are, and a large image of Billy hanging on the wall above the bed. And that installation is titled You Did This to Yourself, 2001.
And I was thinking, are we supposed to think Billy is under this sheet dead?
And I guess that was his intent because Nate
You got me, Billy.
Nate like kneels down and he's like, oh fuck, Jesus, Billy, you fucking psycho. And he goes to uncover the body and Billy like jump scares him and he's super manic and he's laughing. He's like, oh, this is so fun. It's like funerals. You rearrange letters. It spells real fun. Like just being a nut. And Nate's like, I don't think this is funny. And he's slowly walking toward Billy like pissed. And Nate tells Billy to stay away from his sister. She's just a kid. And Billy's like, oh, that's ironic that you're telling me that. Then Nate starts to walk away and Billy jumps in front of him and pulls out a knife. And he starts going off about Brenda's ex-boyfriend, Trevor. So Nate pretends to go along with Billy to get out of the situation. And that completely disarms Billy. And Nate ends up walking out and he's like, yeah, so Brenda broke up with me. Crazy. Yeah, we shouldn't be together. Listen, gotta go. You take care. And taps him on the shoulder and walks out. I'm like, good Lord.
That was a whole scene. That was a whole thing. We also point out that we're getting confirmation that Billy did do the bomb because I'm pretty sure that's what he was insinuating.
Like, what did they tell you? Did they tell you that I made a bomb?
So we finally get confirmation that Billy did the bomb. And I also have to note how perfect Nate is acting in this scenario. I feel like he's not doing anything crazy like some people would, and he's not underplaying it. He's not doing either extreme. He's not underplaying it too. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Because I think Brenda does underplay it later. He's not acting nervous. He's literally acting like a trained cop that is in a sticky situation. So this is super impressive because he's not trained. And he's just trying to level with Billy. It seems like I'm just very impressed. And okay, also, who the fuck is Trevor? And LOL to Nate dipping out so quick, but not triggering Billy. Because if there was smoke coming off the bottom of his soles, you better believe.
It was like he saw the exact moment that Billy was out. Like, because it was right after he said, you know, Brenda broke up with me. Then Billy was just like, oh.
Yep, he put down his guard.
Well, so it's probably for the best. And Nate's like, yeah, no kidding. All right, well, take care. And dips out. But yeah, it was intense, and you're absolutely correct. He played that perfectly. So then at school, Claire is sitting under a tree outside drawing a beautiful sketch of a man's head exploding. She's a very good artist. And Gabe joins her, lays his head on her lap, and they're talking about how hard their day was trying to act normal all day. But then we see Gary getting out of his car in the parking lot, which is like right in front of where they're sitting. And he locks eyes with Claire, and Claire turns away.
Yep, and I noticed peeping. Gary was peeping, and Claire was hiding. So that was one of the things that I thought after you mentioned that he might be falling in love with her, that maybe Claire was too, because later we have more to unpack on that.
Yeah. So okay, best scene. Back at the flower shop, Ruth asks Robbie if he wants to know the most horrible thing that ever happened to her, because earlier he had asked her to tell him sarcastically when she had asked him about being gay. He's like, okay, yeah, sure, then why don't you just tell me the worst thing that ever happened to you? Because about him coming out, insinuating that was the worst moment of his life. So Robbie's still being pissy, and when Ruth asks him that, he's like, No, sister, I do not. But Ruth ignores him and proceeds to tell him that she was married to her husband for 30 years, but she never slept with another man until she started having sex with her hairdresser. With
Robbie's ears
that, Robbie drops what he's doing and pulls up a stool in front of Ruth, listening intently. It's so fucking funny because, or I also love that Ruth is putting in the effort to build a relationship with Robbie.
Yeah.
Because she recognizes that necessity to build the trust and everything. I think that she, in her heart, she's like a true ally and really cares about being an ally for David.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells Robbie about how she couldn't show Hiram how she masturbates because she'd never done it before. And her line is, I was 52 years old and I had to learn how to, and Robbie's like, masturbate. And she goes, from a hairdresser. And Robbie just bursts out laughing and then confesses to her that he never actually did come out to his parents because of how they would react, which helps Ruth to realize David's perspective. And she says to Robbie, well, I'm not like that. And then Robbie, there's a cute moment where he like touches her arm and he's like, and like walks away, where I think he's like,
you might think so.
Right. But I also think he's appreciating that she's trying to be an ally.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you poor
More
thing.
so than his parents did.
Yeah. Right. But like recognizing she still has a long way to go at the same time.
One of my favorite moments was that, first of all, love this about Hiram. He might even get MVP just from this. He literally asked her to masturbate in front of him so that he could know how to please her.
That explains a lot.
Why?
Why she likes him.
Oh, because how important is that? Mutual masturbation, by the way, is so incredible. If you guys have never done it, you need to do it with your partners tonight. And then the fact that Ruth had never done it before just blew my mind even more.
Yeah.
So that was two really cool moments.
Props to Hiram. Next, Nate is at Brenda's telling her about his encounter with Billy. And he asks her about Trevor, and she explains that she was 18 when she was with him. She did love him. And in her words, Billy got sick and Trevor went to Yale without her. So she basically builds Trevor and his wife up, saying really nice things about both of them. Like she's just won some kind of award for being this author or something. And she's putting herself down simultaneously. And Nate interrupts her and says, you know, you're ridiculously gifted too. You could be one of those people who has everything. So sweet. He really loves her. And Brenda ends up breaking down crying, I think more so about Billy, essentially. And Nate tries to comfort her, but she's shutting him down and not letting him hug her or anything, and ends up telling him that she wants to be alone. So Nate leaves kind of annoyed. Like, why are you shutting me out? What the hell?
That had to feel really nice to hear somebody say that.
Something so nice about you that she probably has never really heard from anyone before.
I've never heard that.
Well, you are.
Thanks. I remember hearing him say that and I was like, wow,
I've heard that from my therapist.
I know. It's the people that you don't like necessarily want to hear it from. I've heard it from my friend Chloe.
Okay, so David drives by Marcus's death scene where people have set up a memorial for him. Yeah. So as he's driving past, though, he made eye contact with Eddie, Keith's boyfriend. Definitely did not pick that up last time I watched this episode, but it was Eddie at this memorial. They make eye contact. So now that we know that that's Eddie, what do you think was going through both of their heads? That's another connection to Keith living his truth and David witnessing it.
Wow.
I felt like when they made eye contact, there was...
And Eddie recognized it was David.
Yep. And David recognized it was Eddie. And I felt the most... I mean, there's a lot of things that you could take from this, but I think the most prominent thing that I personally felt was almost a feeling of camaraderie.
Huh. Yeah. It's hard for me to say, too. And I guess I'm kind of curious too. What does Eddie know about David? Like,
right.
what all has Keith divulged about their relationship?
Yeah. I would guess probably not a lot, because I think Keith is still in love with David. And if that's the case, he probably wouldn't want to let on to Eddie that that's how he feels. But
who knows? I mean, I feel like Keith's also so transparent.
Yeah.
That's a tough call.
For sure.
But I do remember, I also wrote, I wonder what he's thinking. And now I wonder
And
even
David's
more.
probably also thinking, no wonder Keith loves Eddie. Look, he's out in the open at this.
Because David's not out there.
He's driving by, hiding in his car while Eddie's there holding a candle, Deep. So then Claire is talking to Gary in his office again, and he asks her why she didn't tell him about Gabe. And she says that she knew that he would tell her that he's a bad influence. And then she opens up to him about her connection with Gabe and then her own feelings about having a shadow hanging over her. And that's why she relates to Gabe.
This was another deep scene, too. Claire goes, I understand what Gabe is going through, feeling like you have this shadow over you all the time. Gary goes, what's your shadow? And Claire goes, death, I guess. Death and silence. And then she giggles. And I feel like she's giggling out of discomfort. Like she just admitted out loud what she's feeling for the first time. And it almost sounded weird to her. And this entire scene is extremely groundbreaking for Claire because clearly Gary's not making enough money for his job because what he just did there is...
As with anybody in the education system, but legitimately, this is a great depiction of like how important support services are and how little they are
funded.
Yeah, supported themselves. But legit, like I think Claire even said in there, that sounds crazy to say that out loud.
I think she did too. I can't remember why I didn't put that in there.
Yeah, but ultimately she ends up articulating to Gary that Gabe did not OD on accident and she's worrying about not knowing what to do. So Gary tells her to try not to make yourself invisible. And she's like, well, this isn't about me. And Gary says, well, that's not a very good start, is it? So Claire here is realizing that Gary, like you said, is doing that very important job of making her realize that she has inherent value just in herself.
I wrote down exactly the same thing. And I was just mind blown because she wants to do all the oh my god, and then this is interesting. Ruth is basically doing the same thing. So I guess I wrote down something a little bit different. I just wrote down the previous of Claire saying, I went to the websites and read all the things, and all they write is all the things that you can't do, but I want to know, what can you do? And Ruth is basically doing the same thing, just in a different setting and with a different person.
Yeah, trying to figure out what she should do.
How to support
someone. That is so true.
I just realized that.
And that's so obvious. But yeah, I did not even make that connection whatsoever. Wow. They really are going through the same thing. Oh, I just love the Fishers.
And the answers to both of their questions are...
You have to work through your own shit first.
You do. Oh my God, we could unpack Ruth's subconscious biases for gay people. Interesting. Oh my God.
So okay. David is in the prep room again with Marcus's ghost, and David talks back to Marcus this time and tries to convince him, aka himself, that there are people that love him. And Marcus's response is, but not as many as hate me and you.
And then my note is, because they pan over to Marcus's body being finished and completed as far as the cosmetics go. And I wrote, David's work is awful, with some laughy cry faces. I honestly hate how fake our family and friends look in caskets. I almost wish that just wasn't a thing because I didn't like it.
It's never comfortable, to see someone in that state. But yeah, that was interesting.
And then later.
Bad. So Rico interrupts David and Marcus's conversation by congratulating David on his job well done with Marcus's reconstruction.
And I'm LOLing because Rico says David's work is great and that it's the best he's ever done, as I'm sitting on the couch in my robe and wearing a face mask talking shit about it. Hashtag called out. Also, nice timing on the claps from Rico after David's speech to dead Marcus. Because he, as you were saying, he's talking back to Marcus, basically gives his spiel, and then Rico walks in with the claps. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I almost thought in that situation when he started clapping that it was Marcus that was clapping.
Yes.
But it was Rico because it fits so well with the scenario. So then Rico's talking to David and he's like, hey, there's like 200 homos outside. You would think the family wouldn't want all of that coming in here. And I said, so now we finally get to see one of the many reasons why Rico's character sucks. So David is like, Rico, I'm a homo. So go David.
I
But
wrote the same thing.
It's also very shocking.
Ecstatic, of course. I wonder if I didn't put this in there. I was thinking of all the people to like own up and do your thing to. Of course, it's little old Rico. You know what I mean? Like puff your chest out.
And we know David does feel superior to Rico.
He does. And that is why, which is kind of rude.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best practice. But David goes, I may not dress like Jackie Kennedy, but I have sex with men. This is in response to Rico saying some pretty shitty things about people attending Marcus's funeral. And Rico goes, don't talk to me about that. Where I come from, if men do that, they do it in silence and they don't talk about it. And that's a real man or whatever. And David goes, I am a man.
And Rico storms off.
Yes.
There was a ton of dialogue in this scene that we didn't write down, but that's the gist of it.
Oh my God.
David came out to Rico and Rico was like, don't fucking talk to me about that. I don't support you. And David's like, rah.
I am a man. I love that. Go David.
Which it's a good thing, though, that David kind of is in a position of power over Rico in this situation.
Yeah, and now I can't remember in the later notes. Like, I don't even remember what Rico does. Does he quit? Who knows? You knows. She knows.
So Claire and Gabe are studying trig in Claire's hearse, and oh my gosh, Gabe's chin beard. They're filming them from the set. They're like both looking at each other like this, so they're filming like this, and Gabe's little chin beard literally made me gag. I could not. It's like a puff of pubes.
I also didn't put this in there, but I did note that those filming angles in that specific scenario were terrible.
Well, they're in the back of a hearse, but
yeah, but it was like right here.
Yeah, it was.
You could probably, if that was the camera, you could count the nose hairs in my nose.
I just really need Gabe to shave. That's all I need for this to be completely fine.
And this is interesting. Gabe asks Claire how she knew all this stuff, and Claire says, somehow teaching you makes it more interesting. It must be the power. And I thought that was really
power is a very, very interesting topic to discuss.
And it also goes to show that you can have that need and want for power and not be like a shitty person.
Not exploit it.
Yeah.
Use it for good. So Gabe comes on to Claire while she's trying to help him with his homework, and she tries to redirect him, but he kisses her anyway, and she pulls away and she kind of starts tearing up, and she tells him that she's scared that he's going to disappear, and he tells her that he's not going to disappear, and Gabe tells her that he's scared that she's too good for him. And oh my God, it was so, because she had to pull it out of him because she's like, well, what are you scared of? I told you. And he's like, I'm scared that I'm not going to finish my homework. And she's like, come on. Like, I was honest with you. And then he's like, okay, I'm scared that you're too good for me. And Claire's like, oh, you idiot. And just like,
there's a lot of chemistry right there.
Oh my God. And her heart just exploded. Like he was vulnerable, and just that little drop of vulnerability was enough to make Claire, I could feel her heart explode. Like, it was
notice
mine.
how good that probably felt for Gabe to get off of his chest too.
Yeah.
Like, I know that sometimes being that vulnerable is scary, but once you can get into that, once you can be vulnerable with somebody and then it not blow up in your face.
Yeah. It's so
impactful.
Absolutely. They're major connecting. I would argue that they are having the most transcending conversations out of all the couples that we've seen. They're making
right
more
now,
progress than like David and Keith, Brenda and Nate.
And their children.
Yeah. Well, Claire is really pulling the weight, but anyway. Nate is helping Ruth prepare for dinner, and he just out of the blue, I love how Nate is just so comfortable just saying whatever, but he's cooking with her and he's like, I finally found a woman I want to commit to, and she makes it totally impossible. And Ruth's like, well, you think that's a coincidence? Maybe if she made it easier, you wouldn't be so eager. You've always been bored with the girls that you could have and fascinated with the ones you couldn't. And Nate's like, yeah, well, whose fault is that? And Ruth's response to that is, your brother's gay, isn't he? And then they get into a little spat.
Where Nate says, I think that's a question for him. And I love that because you don't need to be talking about somebody else's sexuality behind their back. This is exactly why he probably hasn't told her. And this will come up again, I think, for me with Ruth, is you're exhibiting all of the reasons why you're not the comfort and the safe space. And it was a stark reminder for me as a mother to make sure that I'm kind of not doing the things that Ruth has done to push those safe conversations away because I don't.
Self-awareness.
Yes.
She's like slowly
I
starting.
think that's why it's making me so mad.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to avoid it.
You are very big on self-awareness, and she is slowly just building those skills right now.
And it seems like it took the death of her husband to figure it out.
Some people never figure it out. So after they're having their little spat, Nate tells Ruth to breathe, and Ruth's like, I know how to breathe, and I don't appreciate you blaming me for all of your problems. Thank you very much. And Nate's like, your carrots are burning. So typical.
And he had a little smirk on his face.
Yeah, like they were not actually arguing. They're just so family.
Yep. It's like that meme when you're fighting with your husband, but then you're trying to make up and they walk in the kitchen. You're like, hey, is the fridge still in there?
Yes, I was just going to say, because you brought that up a couple episodes ago.
There's my thing.
I was just going to say that same thing, though. That's what I thought of. So then Brenda's laying in bed watching TV when she hears glass break in her living room, and she goes out to investigate and finds Billy sitting at her coffee table. And Billy's like, I know what to do. I know how to fix it. So Billy shows Brenda that he carved off his tattoo on his lower back. And he's like, now the nurse won't ever be able to find them. We just have to get yours now. And he proceeds to approach Brenda with a box cutter.
Okay, and this is what I was talking about back in a few minutes ago. Billy's saying he knows how to fix it. He knows how to fix it. I was thinking, why do I feel like he's talking about the bomb? And then I go, oh, never mind. It's his tattoo puke face. Also, to kind of soften this intense Billy about to kill Brenda moment, my subtitles said, and when Billy was walking closer to Brenda, X-Acto knife clicking. And I was like, oh my God, of course. Okay, back to being uncomfortable and scared.
So Billy pins Brenda down on the ground and rips her shirt and he's going for her lower back tattoo to literally slice it off of her skin. Then she elbows him in the face and knocks him out and calls an ambulance.
In this scenario, I want to bring up, I didn't note this down until I noticed it with whatever, but this was what I'm talking about. If you go back and watch it, Brenda is playing it a little almost too therapeutic-like.
Yeah.
Whereas Nate was playing, he was just so perfect. And what Brenda did is exactly what I think you should have done. Should have happened. But it was just interesting if you watch back. You can almost see her lip quivering and like her nervousness.
I think that Nate's goal was like, get out of here safe. But Brenda's was too clouded by wanting to also bring Billy. Yes, fix him. Yeah, because she's like, Nathaniel and Isabel aren't real. And then that's what literally made him attack her. And I feel like, she's so caught up in him and wanting to
noting
save him.
The great writing and the great acting.
Yep.
That was happening right now.
So good. And a scary moment. So at Marcus's funeral, there are protesters with signs that say things like no fags in heaven and homos in hell. But I love how they made all of these people look like fucking disgusting hillbillies.
What in the actual fuck? How are these people even allowed to be at the funeral of a victim of a hate crime with more hateful posters? There's so many things wrong. The fact that stuff like this has actually happened and still does happen is so disgusting. It's repulsive and hateful. And I'm just like fuming. Yeah. Fuming.
It's crazy to think of the fact that like that's a thing that people, I mean, even any type of protesters like that, the fact that protesters can go to Planned Parenthood and stand there and berate people walking into the clinic, like, just
get the fuck out of here.
Like, what the fuck? Ugh. But so as people are walking away from the funeral, the protesters are yelling to the crowd, God hates fags, stuff like that. And Nate responds, God hates morons. Love him for that. But David attacks one of the protesters and Keith holds him back.
It was also funny because they were basically talking in third person about God. God hates fags, and he's, like God hates morons. Look, God just got you in the face after he punches him. And I was like, damn, that's good. Yeah. The fucking reporters all over on the incident too. Like, what just happened? They're like, what
happened?
Weird.
Did something happen?
Yeah. And then I also have to note how sexy Keith's bald head is right here. Like, oh, come over here.
A man can pull off bald.
Mm-hmm.
So David approaches Keith afterward to apologize, and Keith laughs, which kind of lightened the mood. And David has finally put his big boy pants on and actually apologizes fully to Keith for how he's been. Keith tells him that he worries about him and tells him to stop being so reckless. David continues to apologize, and he's more specific and says, I don't know why it's so hard for me. And they kind of get into a little interaction there about how, I mean, it's not a full resolution, but they're kind of patching things up in a way.
I love that you noted that he's getting more specific, because that's what really makes an apology, is being specific about it. And I teach my ladies that too, is when we're going to apologize about something, you can't just say I'm sorry, or I'm sorry, fill in the vague blank.
Yeah.
It has to be specific.
Say what you did. Say what you did that you're sorry for. Otherwise, it's meaningless.
It really is. And sometimes apologies are really meaningless anyways if your actions don't change. But I think you can tell here that it really did.
Yes, he was really putting the effort in to genuinely apologize. And I think Keith saw that. Again, I don't think they're fully out of the woods, but so then we see Gabe and Claire in the shower together at the Fisher's house making out.
These used to be my favorite things.
Gabe is singing her a little song about having orange hair.
That was cute.
Something like, Claire's my girl. She's got orange hair like tangerines or something like that. It's so funny and adorable.
It was really cute, and it felt really organic, and I don't know. And I love that she's like, you have to be quiet, otherwise if my mom finds out you're in here,
she'll serve your balls for dinner or for breakfast, or fry your balls up for breakfast.
That's what you guys eat around here, is balls.
Yeah. So
pretty
cute.
much.
So Brenda's at the hospital talking to the doctor, and we see Billy laying stomach down on the hospital bed with a bandage over his lower back.
He should have been in a fucking straitjacket. But I was thinking, we don't really know what the doctor's saying. It's just mouthing. And I'm like, I wonder if she'll listen to the doctor about getting a restraining order and having him admitted. Have we found out if Billy is technically a vulnerable adult and or has a conservatorship, or is he just out on his own?
I highly doubt that he has a conservatorship, because I don't even think, I think that they would have. He's obviously has his free will about him to come and go as he pleases. You know what I mean?
I'm curious about how you go about admitting somebody that is an adult.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's a good question.
This scenario probably was enough to do that.
Right.
Because she was...
But like prior to this happening, and when her parents were trying to convince her, how do you do that? Yeah.
Yep. So then...
Brenda signs the papers to have Billy committed, and Nate comes to the hospital, and Brenda tells him that she had him committed, and Nate gives her a hug.
I noted that this was everything that Nate could do. Nate said everything but right by not saying anything at all, and I think that was maybe what Brenda was insinuating earlier.
Like, this is so not what I need from you.
When we were trying to figure out what the fuck could he have done differently, maybe he just was not supposed to say anything.
Yeah.
And we kind of can get the fact that Brenda doesn't like to be told what to do either.
For sure. But I also don't blame Nate for saying what the fuck, because clearly he was right. Yep. Because look what happened. But David finds Ruth at home laying on the couch with a towel over her eyes, and he asks if she's okay. And she tells him that she has a terrible headache. And he's like, well, maybe we can talk later. And Ruth's like, huh? What? And David's just like, I'm gay. I loved it.
I do too.
And Ruth asks why it took him so long to tell her. And he tells her that he just wasn't comfortable. And she pushes. And David says, you know, Mom, you may be trying to be open now, and that's great, but that's not how you've been for all my life. And Ruth tells him that she's always loved him. And David opens up some more and explains more why he couldn't tell her. And Ruth's response, I don't choose which part of you to love like some kind of chicken.
I wrote that down too. I thought it was great.
So funny. And I thought this was a really amazing open conversation between the two. Ruth tells David that she's afraid that he won't take care of himself, and David says he will. And then at the end of their conversation, David's like, well, that's all I wanted to say. And Ruth's like, all right, we're having veal. And she's growing, though. I just fucking love them. Yes. Obviously, she is working through some things, self-awareness things, but she is so growing, and I'm so proud of her.
Okay, so in that same scene, Ruth is somewhat playing the victim here, and by asking, why didn't you tell me? I tried to ask you several times. And this is literally, like I was saying before, the exact behavior and part of the reason that David probably didn't tell her right away. Like, I'm really sorry, but this situation right now, David coming out is not about Ruth. This is nothing to do with Ruth. This is about David, and it just seems like Ruth is making it part of her as well, which also totally get as a mom. Like, it's your son. He's part of you in your life. But this is a personal and deeply intimate piece of David that he's finally coming forward to share with Ruth. And she's just responding this way just so much. Like,
She's
again,
proving his point.
yes, you don't get to decide when and how David is going to come out. And that is the same for any parent. And exactly like you were saying, all of the things that he said, why. I just thought it was so interesting. I don't know. It's such a hard topic to navigate, but I just see all of the flaws in this specific scenario.
I think it's a really real depiction, though, of what it probably looks like for a lot of people. And like,
yeah, why didn't you just tell me?
Yeah, and it's a very relatable, probably, feeling.
We probably do this all the time, actually. I think I do say, why didn't you just...
Yeah.
Like recently with our friend.
Yeah.
In my mind, I don't know if I said it out loud or if I was just thinking it, but that's really not the right thing to say.
Yeah, right. There's so much to analyze about the situation, but ultimately, and part of what makes it so great and the writing so great and everything is that whether it's right or wrong, it's real. Like, this is really what it looks like for a lot of people.
Yeah. And why?
Right. So David gets a visit from Mark's ghost while he's sleeping, and Mark torments him some more. And David goes to call Keith, but puts his phone down when Mark ridicules him. And David drops to his knees and prays to God to help him take his pain away. God, my heart just breaks for him.
I wrote, I'm feeling something. I'm not really sure what it is, but about David praying at the end. I'm not sure if I'm feeling...
I don't want him to be doing that. And I hate it because he feels like that's what he needs to do.
Uh-huh. And I'm definitely feeling that. I think I'm also feeling some sort of hate towards religion.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was watching David make such good progress and now reverting back and then sort of leaning on this fear of what his God is going to do and say to him. And it just pisses me off.
Who the fuck is that helping? By
I have
making
no
him
idea.
feel that way. How in the fuck is that helping anybody? You know who it's helping?
Nobody.
The patriarchy.
Oh, yeah. Them too.
That's the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was a very weird ending. Mate, date, cremate. What were you going to say?
I had to include some that we've already done because there were no new characters.
I think that's totally fine.
So we've got Robbie, Rico, and Gary.
Ooh.
I tried to make it kind of difficult. Or not difficult, but interesting.
Okay. You know what I'm going to do?
Go ahead.
I am going to mate Robbie, date Gary, and cremate Rico. I'm going to mate Robbie because I think it would be fun in bed. He's eccentric and different. I'm dating Gary because I love talking about feelings and I think that we could do that. It would just be fantastic. And fuck you, Rico. You can cremate I'm going to cremate Rico so that nobody even gets the chance to do his work on him when he's dead.
Oh, yeah, he would not be happy with being cremated. Oh, yeah, that's the best answer for sure. I would totally do the same thing, but I'll say I will definitely... Ooh, I don't know. If I can't have that answer, then it gets really difficult. I'm trying to decide.
Because would you want to date Robbie? I don't know. That might be too...
Oh, God, I would get so annoyed of him. But also, he's so funny, so maybe it would be fun.
Yeah.
But I could also make an argument for cremating him because he's annoying. But then what the hell do I do with Rico?
What?
You could make the argument that you want to date him because he'd be a good dad. I mean, as all of his flaws considered, he does love his babies above all else and his wife. But also... Okay.
I don't even know what, but I know what.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say that I'm actually going to cremate Gary because I think he's being creepy. And I'm wanted to make a case for mating Rico, but I just can't. I'm going to mate Robbie because he'd be way more fun than Rico.
Yeah.
And
I bet Rico's the type of person that only mates for procreation.
Yeah. Wait, what did I say? I'm going to cremate Gary.
You're cremating Gary.
I'm going to date Robbie.
Yep.
And I guess I have to meet Rico.
Okay.
because he's the leftover.
Have fun.
Your answer was the best.
Okay, well, you have fun
Yeah.
mating or dating Rico. MVP.
Who did you say?
I forgot.
Hiram.
Oh, yes.
Because he asked Ruth how she
He's not even
masturbates.
in the
He's
fucking
not even
episode,
in this episode, but he still
Hiram
managed to get MVP.
because that's a big deal.
That is. I love it. And that fits with us. So.
Okay. Hiram, you get the MVP for asking your partner to masturbate in front of you so that you can pleasure her like she wants. That's it. We'll see you next week. Make sure you like, subscribe,
Rate us 5 stars.
make us comments, and share us with your friends. But only the weird ones.
Next episode will be the season finale.
Yes.
Season 1 finale. Wow. We'll have to like go to dinner and celebrate or something.
Yeah. That's 13 episodes. Jesus Christ.
I'm proud of us. We're in it now.
Yep. Yeah. I hope you guys like us.
Me too.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
I love that Hiram is the MVP.
Yeah, me too.
He would be so proud.